Hey, I just wanted to do a quick disclaimer before we start this video. I'm only a week into this and I am still really figuring the whole video thing out. I let my daughter film this one and she did a lot of moving the camera around and not didn't quite get framing right. So I've done two things to fix it. I've spent the last week editing this thing to try to hide as much of that as I humanly could. And second, I've also spent that week investing in better equipment and a better setup and consulting with a professional videographer about how to set this up so this doesn't happen again. But the content, if you can look past some of the weird camera shakes, the content is great. And Mike did an amazing job. And I'm really grateful for the interview. And it's only going to get better from here. You're listening to the 217 Business Podcast, a twice weekly podcast that highlights people who start and lead profitable businesses in Central Illinois.
All right, I'm here today with Mike Kallis, my friend in Mattoon and the owner of Soundsource Music. I am going to eventually get out of Mattoon, and I do have several planned for outside of Mattoon. This is where I live, and so I'm kind of starting at home with these first few. And Mike was kind enough to do this with me. This is a music store, so we might hear a little bit of background noise, and that's totally okay. I love this place. I'm in here, Mike would tell you, I'm in here way too much. And I'm a little bit nervous about recording a podcast and setting up audio equipment with you, of all people, because you're kind of the local music sound guy. So just tell us a little bit about SoundSource. What are the kind of things, what sort of services or products do you sell here at SoundSource?
Well, I think the first thing we do is we're still what we would call an old-fashioned music store. We still sell guitars, we sell amps, we sell drums, other thing that you would want and you would think of in music. But there's many other sides to us. We do a lot of PA gear. We do a lot of installs in churches, schools, businesses, event centers, things like that. We do a lot of lighting installs as well. So we'll do lighting also for those churches. And then on the side business, on the other service side, we actually have a DJ service. We do corporate events, lighting and sound as well. We do a repair service on guitar. Goodness, the success of a business is multiple revenue streams. And when one's not going well, guess what? Another one will kick in. But our favorite thing to do, of course, is still run our music store as in guitars and pianos and things like that, and having customers or music aficionados like yourself come in and slobber all over our gear. We like that.
Yeah, I love this store. I come in here a lot. I travel everywhere. I was in a music store Wednesday in Orlando with my business partner, and we're just picking up and playing things. This is my favorite guitar store that I've ever been to. They just have tons and tons of gear in here. It's a welcoming environment. Digital pianos, lots of amps, electric guitars, acoustic guitars, folk instruments. I love coming in here. This was my first, I think I got my first ukulele when I first started playing strings here. And I've bought just about every other piece of gear that I have from you, Mike. And so appreciate the place. So
thank you very much for the kind words.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about revenue streams here in a minute. But how long have you been in business here?
This is my 34 years now of owning the business, and the business has actually been here for 44 years. So it was 10 years before me.
Okay. So how did it get started? I guess if you're not the founder, you purchased the business from
Started
somebody.
out as an organ piano music store.
Okay.
Kind of a spinoff from a company called Samuel Music, which was big in this area for many decades. And he started the organ and piano business, and then as it kind of changed over the years, he didn't really want to be in the guitar and PA business, and I did. And he was a friend of mine. Everybody knows if it's a networking world. And as he was getting out, he offered me to get in. And within 3 hours of one evening, we had purchased his business.
Oh, wow.
Right out of college. I had barely graduated.
Wow. So, I mean, obviously you bought into an existing business, right?
Yes.
So how does that work? Did you go to the store and get a loan, or the bank?
He
and get
was
a
very
loan?
kind. He actually held my hand, walked me along, and said, "I will show you how to the ins and out of the business side of this," and let me buy the business from him on basically contract at that point. No, back then I had something called an Apple IIc computer, and that was my donation to the business, along with my own musical gear, which I sold because I didn't have time to play. So, we started with like 10 guitars, 4 amps, and about 10 pianos.
That's funny. I find that the more my business is doing, the less time I have to practice and play guitar.
Yes.
But well, that's great. And you've been at it for 33 years. I mean, who'd have thought that you, as a kid, basically right out of college, would stick with this for so long?
You're right. And you don't think you will. You always think, oh, I'll do this and someday I'll do something else. And next thing you know, it's 33 years later, and you're still looking at the building going, gosh, this has turned out to be a pretty good venture.
So when you first got started, were you the only employee, or were there other?
Oh, no, I was the only employee when I started. I did everything. I would close the store and clean at night. I did all the sales, all the bookkeeping. It was back then, though, when you're young, there is no something. Energy level is nothing. You don't need a Red Bull, those funny little energy drinks to keep you going when you're young. You just work, and it's really no big deal. 80 hours a week back then it's just what you do. You know how that is. Any entrepreneur that truly loves their business, the secret to that is it's not a job.
Yeah,
it's just what you do every day, and you don't really look at it as a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, that's good. So how long before you started hiring people?
About 2 or 3 years in, who's still with me today, John Clarkson, who's well known in this area as a guitar player, started out by helping me clean. He was a guitar teacher, and next thing I know is like, hey, John, I got to go do something. Can you watch the store for a couple hours? Well, it just kind of swayed into a business together. And 32 years later, or whatever it is, 30 years later, he's still with me, still teaches, still runs our internet side of the business.
Was he 6? Because John Clarkson does not seem that old to me.
John he'll never age. I've aged and he doesn't. But he's been here for forever, and it just goes to show you, if you want to make your living in music, it's a wonderful thing to do. And the staff I have today, they make their living in music. So you find people who just want to share this passion with you and who have a vision just like you of, oh boy, I really like music. How can I make my living at this and be successful? And there's so many ways to make a living in music. If you just buy into the simple theme of I make my living in music, you will find a way to be successful.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple questions about like the business side of things, because most of the people that are going to watch this show or listen to the podcast are business people. What are you mentioned the importance of having multiple revenue streams? What are you've got retail, obviously.
Yes,
you're selling,
which is your biggest.
In-person retail is your biggest. You do lessons, right?
Lessons make up a big part of our business because that's our feeding system.
Right.
To the business. So as an entrepreneur, the other thing you have to have besides multiple revenue streams is a feeding system to your business.
Yeah.
And without lessons, there's no feeding system.
Right. Well, we're trying to figure that out for my business because we make apps, and our apps, $50,000 to $200,000. You just can't go door to door and sell that to people.
No, it's custom.
Yeah,
and it's just like music business. It's very custom. If it wasn't custom, I'd have 2 guitars.
Right.
It's everything else in the world. You want it to be successful, so you have to do everything you can to acquire the largest audience you can in the market that you serve.
Yeah.
And that's always very challenging.
Yeah.
But the revenue streams are everything. But a feeding system, going back to your question, excuse me, lessons, that's our number one. Without them, we're gone.
Yeah. Okay. And then you have some services that you do: DJ service, installs, and professional audio for.
We do a lot of
as well.
We do. We have a rental service that we Eastern Illinois, and we do a lot of rentals there. But going out and doing corporate events and helping our like Sarah Bush or your corporates like Rural King, things like that. We do a lot of things. Even for our factories, we'll go in and do setups for them to do their displays on. Yeah. So these are all great events that we get to partake in every year and build your network up a little bit.
Let me ask you this. Local retail, especially, this is a small area, 40,000 people, 50,000 people in the area. Local retail is just it's getting to be like the dinosaur. You know, it's everybody buys things on Amazon, or they buy, you know, you've got Sweetwater and other companies that we're probably competing against. How do you stay in business? What are you doing to compete against all these things?
I think it's pretty easy. First of all, it's all personalized service.
Yeah.
When you come, just like you said, when you come in the store, you want it to be a shopping experience. When I talk to my sales staff about, anybody can come in and push a button and buy something off an online site. But when they come in the store and you personalize it and you let them touch and squeeze the guitars and really make it a shopping experience, it doesn't matter who your age is, sooner or later, as a musician anyway, you're going to want that shopping experience. So we try very hard to make sure when you come in the store, it's a fun experience for you. So then when you do decide to make that buying decision, we hope to be in your 1, 2, or 3 number decisions. And that's really been my formula ever since I started.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, you know, music store, definitely a tactile kind of purchase.
Sure.
You just... I've grabbed 2 different guitars that are literally the same make.
Play differently.
And fallen in love with one and not like the other one at all.
You are correct.
It's just a completely different thing. But I imagine that would be good advice for anybody that's in retail. If you're in small town retail, or not even small town retail, you know, if you're in retail at all, get people in the store and make it an experience.
Make it an experience. No matter what you do, you know, in the old days, we had a guitar throwing contest. We would bring we'd bring people out. We'd have these old junky guitars. We'd have these points factors. You throw these guitars through this thing, you got points. It's marketing.
Yeah.
And it's what we call old school guerrilla marketing. Now, we don't do that anymore because it kind of had its life. But there's many other things you could still do that makes that customer come to you in a special way. And that's always a lot of fun.
Okay. Let me ask you a couple. We've kind of talked about some of these things, but I've got 4 more questions. I'll try to go really quick. What do you do to get more customers?
Well, in today's world, it's changed. Now we have a social media platform in which we have to work through. We still work off word of mouth. I think that's still your number one way to get a customer in the store. And that's still the best way when someone comes and talks to me. And I am old enough where I have generations now. So I'm on my 2nd generation of families, okay? Just like you'll bring your kids in. Well, one day they may bring their kids in. Well, that's 3rd generation. So my joke is, once I get to 3rd generation, I have to retire. But it is longevity.
Yeah.
And that's why they say once a business gets to 10 years, the chances of you surviving go up considerably in percentages. And it's what you want to make out of your business has a lot to do with it. If you want to be a millionaire in Mattoon, Illinois, okay, but it might be a little more challenging.
Yeah.
It just has to be what you want to do and how you want to be about being successful. But social media is exactly where you should be in today's world. We put up videos. We do. In fact, you gave me great advice, and in fact, I took your advice. And have one of our guys, we just uploaded some videos, and we're embracing TikTok and some of the newer platforms for young people, but just showing people gear in more of a playing way and more of a fun way. Yeah. But you have to embrace what young people are doing in order to be successful.
Yeah. And one thing that you guys do great at is you get on any of like Facebook Marketplace, your gear is always on there.
Always on there.
You're selling on other Reverb and different places like that, and eBay, as well as in store. What percentage of stuff? I mean, what percentage of your guitar sales and whatnot happen online versus?
I'd probably say 20%.
20%
of our sales are driven online now. The funny story about that is you and I became better friends during COVID.
Yeah.
And we had a problem was we weren't ready on our platform as well as we should have when COVID came. And Ryan came along and created us a wonderful website with a back-end shopping cart. And I have to tell you, it changed the store completely. And to this day, we still find that cart is followed by just so many people, and before they come in, they do their research on our cart, and then they'll come in and they're so much more educated. But that lets us compete more with the bigger boys in the industry because we do such a good job of making it. But for you making that site for us during such a critical time, turned out to be our success during COVID, because something always good comes out of something bad. And our relationship we built with you during that time created that special involvement with us.
Yeah. By the way, that shopping cart is called Equid, ECWID.
Love it.
And it's not super expensive.
Not at all.
You don't need somebody like me to set it up for you.
$39 a month.
Yeah, it's great. I think I like Shopify, but I think a lot of people should check out Equid as well. I've helped several small local businesses.
I think it's better if you put it on the back end. There's some tricks to that.
Yeah.
And having someone like Ryan maintain that site for you, I will tell you right now, is a savior, because if you need it done, it can happen, or his staff can.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me ask you one more question, and then we'll wrap this up. If somebody was coming to you, and they were like, maybe not guitars, but they were like, I want to start a retail store, what advice would you give them?
If you're going to start a retail store in today's world, I do find it quite challenging, but find something that you can have a niche on, whether it be something boutique-ish or something that no one else has, and then personalize it. So if something competitive does end up on the wonderful Amazon or whatever you want to call it, you can survive. People forget there was this company called Sears and Roebuck, and at the turn of the century, Sears and Roebuck was Amazon. Uh-huh. And no one thought retail would ever survive because they own such a market share. We're seeing the same thing again, and I can honestly tell you, a good entrepreneur, whether it be a restaurant or a service or retail, will always survive if they have the passion and the product knowledge, or just the need to get that out to people. You can always survive if you're a good entrepreneur.
All right. Thank you so much for coming and doing the interview today. And let me just tell you, if you're watching this and you're in the Central Illinois area and you have a business and you'd like to be interviewed and you'd like to talk business with me, I will drive to where you're at and we will have that conversation. You can find out about us at 217business.com. There's a form on there where you can get that information. And thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. You can find past episodes or sign up to have your Central Illinois business featured on the show at 217business.com. The 217 Business Podcast is sponsored by my business, Build Online, where we help entrepreneurs and small businesses design and build custom apps, websites, and software. Find out more about us at buildonline.io. I'll see you in the next one.